This is Dreamvisions 7 Radio Network.
Welcome to the Anxious Voyage. If you think that title sounds bleak or foreboding, one of two things must be true. You're very lucky, or you need to get out more. On this program, we share stories of life and living. We compare notes. We discover commonalities. We accept that life is a glorious, heartbreaking thing, and we embrace and celebrate all of it. Take the ride with us. We're glad you're here. Now, here's your host, Mark O'Brien.
Hello from wherever you are. We are coming to you again, and as always, from world headquarters in tropical Middletown, Connecticut. And we just want to thank everybody who came out for last night's Polar Bear Beach Blanket Bingo on the banks of the Connecticut River. Everybody had a wonderful time, and if you weren't there, we're sorry that you missed it. I was just listening to the introduction to the show, and especially the part about life is a glorious, heartbreaking thing, but we embrace and accept all of it. And it seems perfect for my guest today, who is Daisy Plaza. And Daisy is the author of the book that you can see over her shoulder, which spares me the trouble of having to hold it up like this and show all of my bookmarks and stuff in here. So Daisy, thank you very much. I'm so glad you're here.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I'm good, thank you. If I were any better, I wouldn't have any idea what to do with myself. Most people don't laugh when I say that, so thank you. I'm just going to tell our viewers and listeners that you and I had the opportunity to meet at a book signing event that we were both invited to at Barnes & Noble in Glastonbury, Connecticut. And I had the good fortune of having you sit right to my left. Is that a contradiction? Directly to my left. How's that?
Directly, yes.
Yeah, that's better. And I enjoyed your company and I enjoyed your energy immensely. But I have to tell you that when I bought your book, I had no idea what I was in for. I think the word that comes to mind for me to best describe it is harrowing. And I don't doubt for a moment that every word of it is true. But how that could be true and have you sitting here today smiling like that is somewhere between a mystery to me and a miracle. So if you don't object, could you please tell the folks who have tuned in today at least a little bit about your story, especially the beginning of your life?
Yes, I started off with being very young and dealing with trauma at a young age. First, by being molested at a very young age. I then was almost raped. And then I decided to join a gang because I was looking for someone to say that they cared or loved me. Even though I had a family, you always seem to try to find something that you really don't know what you're looking for, just to fit in at that moment. I went to that to then choosing men who were very abusive. And the journey of being in a relationship for over 20 years, filled with domestic violence, was something that I didn't know what to do with or how to get out. And having children very young, I was trying to figure out, what do I do for them to make it better? How do I get out of this? How did I get into this type of life? I have no idea. And I chose me later.
Wow. So many things are flying through my head. So I'll start here. I think I know the answer from having read your book, but as a mother in difficult circumstances and relationships like that, aside from the pain and trauma that justifiably caused you. Did you feel pressure to be something like a role model for your children?
Um, I always wanted them to understand that no matter what happens in life, we get to choose what we want. And I wanted to make sure that I still showed them that I was still smiling, that I was still pushing forward, that there's so much more to life than just what I was going through in the home, because the world is huge, right? So I wanted them to know there's so many things that we can choose from out there. And that was my goal.
I think I'm not a psychologist, by the way. Did I remember to tell you that?
Yes.
I'm not. Um, but I have to tell you that um, I admire you, and I think it's uncommon when you say, well, it's a big world, right? Because um, I think there are other people, I may very well have been one of them, who in whatever their trying circumstances might be, tend to think that they're the only ones who are experiencing this.
Mm.
And I can actually remember at one time in my life, it doesn't even matter what I was contending with, but someone said to me, look, you need to understand that you are not yourself right now, but you will be. And that actually made me angry because I thought, how in the world, how do you know? You don't know anything about what I'm experiencing. I know now that's ridiculous, but for you to have had the wherewithal and the foresight to understand that you couldn't be the only one and that there had to be more and better, again, strikes me as remarkable.
I always tell myself, even to this day, that when I go through things in life, I always know that someone might be going through something worse. And I always put that first in my life. Like I always think in that way because I'm not the type to try not to ever complain. Like I go through my moments because everybody does. And I have to remind myself I have to get up and I have to keep going. I don't have a choice. And I don't ever want to not show my kids that just because you fall, you don't stay there. I always taught them, you got to get back up. You got to figure it out no matter how hard it is, because I may not be here tomorrow. So I wanted to teach them. And if I leave them anything before I leave this earth, is that you never give up. You just don't.
You said a moment ago, and you were talking about, and I'm going to say it was in the context of being responsible to or for your children. You said, I didn't have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you did, but you made a very positive, constructive one. And I'm just going to say this again. Not everybody would make that choice. Not everybody would be able to see their way through or have a long enough perspective to make that choice. So somehow or other, I don't know if this ever occurred to you, but you must have been hopeful.
Always.
I love that you say that with that smile.
Always.
Much to my wife's chagrin, I love to watch true crime programming.
Favorite show?
Wow, I have a bunch of them, but I've been binge watching I Am a Killer on Netflix.
I just watched it last night. I binge watched it. It's my
Okay.
favorite.
So I think it was the one in which a guy who was part of I think they called it the Texas Mexican Mafia or something.
Yes.
He had killed, and I may be confusing it with a different episode, but the person who was imprisoned was asked about what led him to commit the murder that he was imprisoned for, and his answer was emptiness. And I was thinking about that when you were talking earlier about joining a gang. Did you feel that? Were you aware of that?
I can kind of understand that. It's really weird. When at the time, you don't wake up one day and go, "Hey, I think I want to be a part of a gang." I wasn't raised that way. Had a loving grandmother. Um, Family, we were pretty close. My mom, my dad died when I was young. So I think at the time when my father died, I was going through I didn't know where to fit in. And as I got a little bit older, I just felt empty. I didn't know which way to go. I felt like I didn't have anyone, even though everyone was there, but they weren't present, if that makes sense.
It does.
So then you end up joining this so-called family, and they show you things of, oh my God, we're going to be there for you. We're going to love you. But when you get in, it's totally different. It's not what they say. And that is where I can say I understood what he was talking about. But it's also a choice.
Well, yeah, and
So
in some of the true crime stuff that I've watched things about the hazing programs or initiation programs that take place in college fraternities, and you write something actually similar to that about being, I don't know what, accepted into the gang or something, and having to undergo physical beating.
correct.
The phrase that came to mind when I was reading that was cognitive dissonance. So, and I could very well be guilty of overthinking because I'm really, really good at that. But I'm thinking, okay, these folks want me to be part of their organization, and they want me to think it's familial. So in order to be accepted, I have to let them beat the hell out of me. That didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Did it make sense to you at the time?
No. I was, the choice was, do I go hurt somebody else or do I get hurt? And I preferred for me to get hurt, for me to be in it than me hurting someone else at that moment. It's really weird because you feel like when you're in it, in your mind, you're like, what am I doing? But you're already in it. It's already happening, right? I literally just closed myself off, if that makes sense, mentally. Just close myself off during that moment. And then once it's over, you're like, thank God it's over. Now what? And then the whole door opens and you're like, I don't know if I signed up for this.
Well, that's another thing I was wondering. So you're not with the gang. You're not with the other members of the gang all the time. So in the time that you're not with those folks and you're engaged in other aspects of your life, is there any dissonance there? Are you thinking, whoa, this is just so weird? I mean, right now I'm home with my kids being a mom, and I might have to go back out on the street and be a gang member. Does that go through your mind?
It didn't, because unfortunately they are around you every day, all the time. And so in my home, they were in my home while I had my kids there. There's just so much that went on so fast. I feel like I lost control at that moment. And I had to think of, you don't even have a moment to think of, what am I doing? What am I going to do? It came later on where I felt like this is not the life that I want to live. And this is not the life that I want my children to see or view. But because they were so young, they had no idea what was going on. Thank God. But yeah, I don't know if you even get a moment. I think the reality comes when something happens that you can't believe happened. Then you stop and think, I don't think I want to do this ever again. And now you're trying to figure out, how do I get out? That's what happened to me.
Well, and I know from reading the book that how do I get out occurred to you more than once in your life. And I think we might, yes, I know we will get to that in a bit, but right now what I would like to do is for those of who are watching and can see the book over your shoulder, and for those who are not, I will tell you that the title of Daisy's book is I Did It For Her. Her refers to Erica. So I would like you to tell us a little bit about Erica. And I have a question, which is, could you have had any idea when you met her that she would become some combination of anchor and inspiration for you?
No. I met her when she was 16. She and my son were dating in high school. They went to two different high schools, but they were dating. She, like I had explained a little bit in the book, very standoffish in the beginning. And then she started to open up, and her story started to sound familiar like mine as a young girl. And I started to have great conversations with her. We would be up 2-3 o'clock in the morning. And her and my son decided to get their own place. I was excited. And every weekend, are you coming over? Because we need you to come over. And I would come over on Friday and stay with them till Sunday. I felt like she was my daughter, my other daughter. And I loved her very much. Good kid, went to UConn, had a good head on her shoulders when it came to education. But she was going through a lot. But it was crazy because we would have conversations and she would say, I need you to tell your story. And I'm like, I kind of want to write, but I don't know. How she became an anchor was crazy because she's the one that wrote out your first 40 to 70 words are the most important to get your audience in to read your book, and make sure you have a cliffhanger because that will draw them in. She loved books. I probably have about 50 of her books that I have with me now. I didn't think at 20 that I would have to bury her with her mom. Her dying that young, even changed my perspective more in life. I definitely needed therapy at that time. I didn't know how to handle that because she was a child. And me having also to deal with my son, having to help him. It was crazy because he ended up helping me more. I don't know how to explain that, but she then, like I said in the book, her last text to me was, you have to tell your story. And I held on to that for about 2 years. And then 2 years later, I just felt like the doors opened and it just happened that way. But yeah, she definitely is the reason why I wrote it.
I'm going to guess that, especially at the time that she made that suggestion to you, you probably didn't even think of yourself as a writer.
No.
And I had never heard that notion about the first, what was it, 40 to 70 words?
Yeah, she used to always say, your first 40 to 70 words in your book will determine if the reader is going to continue to read it. I still have it. She wrote it in my computer and I kept it. And it says by Erica. She even wrote my outlines on what the titles may be for my book. Because after she texted me, I believe she died about 3 weeks later. Oh. It was just crazy. I never expected that in my entire life. But I feel like now that she's my angel, and yeah, I did it mostly for her because I felt like she needed a lot of help also. And I wish I would have done more. And I had a lot of guilt for that too, that I had to learn to let go because things in life happen that are not controlled, right? So how can I give her something back? This was it.
And on the subject of guilt, I'm going to pick that up specifically after the break. But I want to ask you, how old was she when she imparted that information to you about you need to write your story and the thing about the first 40 to 70 words? How
20.
old was she?
20 years old.
The first thing that goes through my mind is if I had been anywhere near that insightful at 20 years old, my whole life would have been completely different. And the other thing is, and it's funny, whenever I wonder about this particular question, I always think of two people, and they're both musicians, both guitar players. Do you ever have the feeling that maybe we have the idea of a full life wrong? And I think of Jimi Hendrix, who was gone at 27, and Stevie Ray Vaughan, who was gone at 35. I can't imagine those two people ever having been older. And given what they were and everything they accomplished, I don't know.
That's a good point.
I mean,
I don't think we ever think about how long, people are going to be here, or what are the impacts that people are going to leave us? What are they here for? But that's why I tell you that I will continue to smile, continue to be happy, continue to live my life, because I don't know how long I'm going to be here for. But what I will leave for my children and what I want to teach them and show them is you can have whatever you want in life. You just got to go get it, no matter how hard your life may have been. I think that's why I am the way that I am. And I think Erica, and I'm going to say that she was 19 when she wrote that, because she passed away at 20. I just feel like she would have had so much more to offer if she was still here. And I think that's what saddens me. Yeah.
And there is that. And, even with the two guys that I mentioned, I wondered what else they might do. Mm-hmm. Okay. So here's the thing. I would like us to take our first commercial break right now.
Okay.
It's going to be 3 minutes, and we will be back right after that. So see you on the other side.
Okay.
Everybody has a story. Everyone's story deserves to be told, and the only bad stories are the ones we don't share. That's why Mark O'Brien created The Anxious Voyage. It's Mark's conviction that every story deserves to be shared, and his purpose is to give people in all walks of life from any circumstances a chance to tell their stories. The Anxious Voyage is now on syndicated Dreamvisions 7 radio network every Monday at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, with live broadcast every first and third Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Please tune in, please join Mark, and please share your stories.
Ever wonder what it's like to have your own radio show? Well, wonder no longer, because you can dip into the radio airwaves by being host for the day on syndicated Dreamvisions 7 radio network. It's a fabulous way to get your radio feet wet. It's an opportunity to market your business, modality, or book. Have a guest, mention a sponsor, and take callers. Or you may want to facilitate a lesson by going solo. It's up to you. Listeners can be online, mobile, in cars with Bluetooth, or listen through Amazon's Echo by asking, Alexa, play Dreamvisions 7 Radio Network. For more details, go to dreamvision7radio.com and click on Host for the Day.
You can't establish your brand's authority without a voice. That's why, since 2004, O'Brien Communications Group, OCG, has been helping companies establish their authority, find their brands, distinct voices, and position their brands effectively and persuasively. So effectively that 9 of OCG's clients have been acquired by other companies. OCG's business model emphasizes efficiency and results, not hourly billing, markups, and media commissions. That ensures OCG's advice is unbiased and its clients aren't at financial risk. If you're ready to find your voice and use it to tell your story, OCG is ready to help. You can find O'Brien Communications Group on the web at o'briencg.com. That's OBRIENCG.com, or call 860-944-9022.
Calling all authors. Have you been considering an audiobook? Well, look no further. Come take advantage of Dreamvisions 7 Radio Network's unique in-house audiobook production, which includes benefits and bonuses from our radio station. Let our knowledgeable staff guide you to create the audiobook you've always dreamed of without breaking the bank. Check out our full one-stop service from A to Z, including the ACX process.
Enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
Hello and welcome back. Wanted to make sure my microphone was still on. I want to pick up Daisy on the notion of guilt.
Yes.
And I have a bunch of bookmarks in your book here, but I labeled one of them A and another one B because I found them to be related. On page 108, you were talking about Erica's passing. And you said, I couldn't wrap my head around what had happened and had a lot of guilt. I felt that I could have saved her. And then on page 118, you wrote, we may not be able to fix people, but we can definitely guide them to a healthier way of dealing with things. I want to share with you that there have been two occasions when I found out that people I was close to had committed suicide.
Mm.
And my first reaction was, if only I had, and then I had to stop myself.
Yeah.
If only I had what? And believe this or not, a psychiatrist once said to me, you can't reparent people.
Mm.
So I wonder if you feel like guilt, and especially under the circumstances of someone's passing, regardless of how they had passed, is something of a trap. Because there isn't, in most instances, there isn't really much you can do.
No, I think because I knew that she was going through so much, I started to get in my head like, oh, maybe I could have put her with the right people. Maybe, if I don't know what I thought at the moment of what more could I have done. I can say now in my present time, I know there was nothing I could have done. But when it happened, it's just like, what could I have done to make it different? Maybe she would have still been here if I would have got her help. If, I don't know, a lot of things went through my head and I had that guilt and I held on to it for a couple years. And then I had to tell myself, no, I can't live that way because it wouldn't have probably changed anything. It wouldn't have changed anything. Things, I don't know. I didn't know how to handle it at that moment. And that's why I had so much guilt and it ate me up inside.
I had the question that your son had when you told him that Erica was gone.
Mm.
Because I didn't know if it was foreshadowing, but I had the sense at some points earlier in the book that she might be at risk for taking her own life.
Correct.
And oh boy, I don't know if relieved is the right word, but let's just say I was happy she did not. I mean, it was a terrible accident that took her life, but I was just so happy that she hadn't done that. I want to ask you something else. Have I mentioned to you that I'm not a psychologist? Have I told you that? Okay, I just want to make sure you know that. This is something. This is something I suspect most people, I don't know if I should say all, but most people who go through divorce end up realizing, and this is on page 98. The worst part was that people did choose instead of saying neutral and out of our business. The thing, one of the most important things that divorce taught me is who my friends were.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have that experience?
Yes, I lost a lot of people in my life. A lot. So, when you're married, everybody comes over. I had the cool house. Everybody wants to come to the parties, the pool parties, the cookouts. When that divorce happened, I felt like a lot of people divorced me. And I felt lost. I felt like, how is this happening right now? And why do people choose? Why can't you just stay neutral? But it also taught me that it's okay. Everybody has the right to choose whatever they want in their lives and what feels fit. And whoever does stay in your life is who's supposed to stay. I think that was hard for me, though, at that time.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it at all
Oh.
because you already lost so much. Now you feel like you're losing everything. Everything.
I was separated in 1988 and divorced in 1989. And I can remember it dawning on me, and it took a little while, that a guy that I worked with at the time was suddenly there every time I needed somebody to be there. And I thought, wow, that's what friendship is about.
Mm-hmm.
That guy is still a friend today.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's amazing. And I'll tell you, maybe you got this too. One of the things that I just had a really difficult time was when people would say to me, well, I'm not judging the person, meaning me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm judging what the person did.
Correct.
And, I don't know that it ever occurred to me to ask, could you tell me exactly what the hell the difference is? But I really wonder now what kind of answer I would have gotten.
That's a great point. What bothered me the most? It wasn't about me. It's they divorced my children. I feel like they
Oh,
all abandoned my kids. I wasn't, I'm the adult. So I always tell myself, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to figure it out. But for kids, no matter what their age is, they're going to feel abandonment. And
right.
so I felt like not only did you leave my side, you left their side. I think I would have been okay if they still were a part of my children's life and they stayed with communication, still had them a part of their things. And no, they cut us all off. And I think that was the part that I didn't understand. And this was family. This was, not just friends. It was a lot of family members. I think that's the part that tore me up. And I had to fill in that void for my children. How do I do that? I had to figure that out as well. So it was not only abandonment that their father wasn't around. Now their cousins are gone. Now aunts and uncles, they're taking sides. Nobody's thinking about the children. And that's the part I didn't understand. Like, if anything, let the adults figure it out, right? But the kids are innocent. They should have still had a relationship with everyone. And it didn't work out that way. It was a lot of separation.
So I have to ask you now, how are your children?
I say that they're great. They don't have a relationship at all with their father. I will say this, since the day that I decided to divorce them, I always said, regardless on what he's done to me, he's still your father. So if they wanted to have a relationship, I never wanted them to feel guilty to have one. Because that was the other thing that I was worried about. I don't want you to feel like you have to choose sides. You don't have to do that. You can still have your father and your mom. But they decided as adults that's not what they want to do because so much happened and they witnessed it. And so as adults, they get to choose how they want a person in their life. And that's what they did. They chose.
One of the reasons I asked the question is that I've learned from my own children who are now, oh my God, it's a good thing I'm sitting down, who are now 41 and 38.
Mhm.
But I've learned how resilient they are. And all the things that I thought would affect them deeply and long term didn't. And maybe the couple of things that they carried around longer than I hoped they would,
Mhm.
they got to the point at which they figured it out for themselves. Do you, I don't know how old your children are, but do you find them reaching points like that?
So 34 and 33, I feel like they're still finding their way. It's really, and then the two younger ones are 29 and 24. I feel like they know exactly where they're going and what they need to do.
Oh, interesting.
It's a weird separation on how they think. But I feel like the two younger ones saw a lot more and they dealt with a lot more because the older ones, one went to college in Florida, the other one had moved out. So now everything that was going on fell on the two younger ones. And I feel like their resilience is a lot more showcased. They, to me, will survive through a lot more than I feel the older ones. The older ones still come, hey mom, what do I do? The last two, they figure it out.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, it's really weird, but that's the way it worked out. But my biggest fear was as long as they didn't learn the bad things that they've seen or become that. That was my other fear. Do not become what you see. And I thank God every day that they're not that way. You know, my daughter, I was scared she might find a man, unfortunately, like her father. And then I didn't want the men in my home to become the man that they saw, you know, as they got older. So I think they're doing great in that perspective.
Both of my sons are, they're just very good men. They're very good husbands and they're very good fathers. When they were younger, the older one was the one who was more prone, I guess, to getting himself in trouble. And without going into detail, except for the luck of the Irish, he could have gone away for at least 2 years. But he lucked out. All the lights that I would have hoped went on, et cetera, et cetera. But I almost had the feeling that his younger brother was like watching him, saying, "Oh, nope, not going to do that. No, not that either." And he was just, I don't
That's
know.
what happened over here. That works.
Yeah.
That works. And I have to say I feel like that's why my younger ones are also like that. Because my oldest always took the wrong turn. But I will say they are wonderful dads. Like they're such great fathers. I have to agree with you on that. They watch everything.
Oh, yeah.
And they will choose, I'm either going to follow that or do I do the opposite? And thank God they said, I'm doing the opposite. And then finally it's starting to click as they get older to say, let me change my ways. So.
And as you're saying that, I'm realizing that I made particular decisions in response to things my own dad did. And I thought, no, I don't think I'm going to go about it quite that way.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe we're there already, but we are at our second commercial break.
Okay.
So we'll take another 3-minute break right here, and we'll pick up the last segment when we come back. Please stay
All
with
right.
us.
All right.
The quantum age?
Humanity's next step in evolution?
Dreamvisions 7 Radio Network invites you to the extraordinary platform of evolutionary voices for the quantum age.
Let's explore. Learn more about this upcoming age where we bridge science with spirituality,
Where potentiality meets reality.
where we take compassion into action.
Our trailblazers and visionaries will ask the whys, the what ifs, while igniting continuous possibility.
Come along with us into an age beyond what we know today, where we can grow together in unity consciousness.
Experience evolutionary voices for the quantum age, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern on Dreamvision7Radio.com.
You can't establish your brand's authority without a voice. That's why, since 2004, O'Brien Communications Group, OCG, has been helping companies establish their authority, find their brands, distinct voices, and position their brands effectively and persuasively. So effectively that 9 of OCG's clients have been acquired by other companies. OCG's business model emphasizes efficiency and results, not hourly billing, markups, and media commissions. That ensures OCG's advice is unbiased and its clients aren't at financial risk. If you're ready to find your voice and use it to tell your story, OCG is ready to help. You can find O'Brien Communications Group on the web at o'briencg.com. That's OBRIENCG.com or call 860-944-9022.
Calling all authors. Have you been considering an audiobook? Well, look no further. Come take advantage of Dreamvisions 7 Radio Network's unique in-house audiobook production, which includes benefits and bonuses from our radio station. Let our knowledgeable staff guide you to create the audiobook you've always dreamed of without breaking the bank. Check out our full one-stop service from A to Z, including the ACX process. Schedule a free consultation by calling 508-226-1723. That's 508-226-1723. Or go to dreamvision7radio.com.
Everybody has a story. Everyone's story deserves to be told, and the only bad stories are the ones we don't share. That's why Mark O'Brien created The Anxious Voyage. It's Mark's conviction that every story deserves to be shared, and his purpose is to give people in all walks of life from any circumstances a chance to tell their stories. The Anxious Voyage is now on syndicated Dreamvisions 7 Radio Network every Monday at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, with live broadcast every first and third Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Please tune in, please join Mark, and please share your stories.
This is Dreamvision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
Hello, welcome back. Thank you for staying with us, and we're glad you're here for our last segment, which we wish were not our last segment. I want to pick up, Daisy, on the notion of self-love, because I hear people talk about that all the time. And have I mentioned to you that I'm not a psychologist? Have I said anything about that?
I don't remember.
Okay. So I'm not a psychologist, but I'm always tempted to equate self-love with narcissism, which is not obviously a very healthy thing. So you wrote, this is the last item from your book that I wanted to share with everyone, on page 116. And you wrote this when you were describing finding yourself again.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost easier to partially love someone broken than whole, because someone whole would make you take accountability. Dang, that's brilliant. How do we break the cycle so we can love and be loved properly?
Mm-hmm.
I would like you to just talk about that a little bit, and then I want to share something else. What compelled you to write that, and How did you realize it?
I felt that for me to be in the type of relationship that I was in, I realized that I didn't love myself because that wasn't love. I thought it was, but it wasn't. I think that it was more manipulation, more of controlling for the aspects of my life. I thought about everything after my divorce and said, "What are you doing?" And then I saw a pattern also of picking those same type of men. And so I decided that I started to say self-love is important, because if I don't love myself, how am I supposed to love you? And when I say that it's easier to love someone broken, it is, because they do not make you take accountability at all. You pretty much get away with a lot of toxic things in relationships when you're broken, because no one is saying you're not going to do that. No one is saying I shouldn't be doing that. No one is saying, um, you know, this isn't healthy. You're just going right along with it as if this is what life is supposed to be like, and it isn't. I think I learned that, though, loving my children in a different way.
Mm.
So while loving my children unconditionally, I started to realize something didn't make sense here. Because if I'm teaching my children, this is what love is, right? I'm hugging you. I'm telling you that I love you. I'm affectionate. The words that come out of my mouth are also backed up with action, right? So in a
Mm.
relationship, all the words that are coming out weren't backed up with action. The action that was coming was negative. The action that I showed my children were positive. So I had to figure out where did I miss it at? How did this happen? How am I in this position right now in my life? And so during my journey on the 8 years of being divorced, I've learned to try to figure out, what does healthy love look like? What does self-love look like? How do I move forward to make sure that I don't ever choose or settle for what I thought love was before? Because I don't want that to reoccur.
You just made me wonder. At the very beginning of this conversation, we were talking about the emptiness that may compel some people to belong to gangs or something. Do you think that emptiness equates to something like unworthiness? Because it just occurs to me that people, I think I want to say tolerate. I
Mhm.
think people who tolerate abusive relationships, no matter what form the abuse might take, do so because they don't even imagine they're worthy of anything else.
Absolutely.
And so, what I want to point out to you is, even as you were going through that, whether you saw this as cause and effect or not,
Mhm.
you were making sure that your children felt worthy.
Yes.
And I said also earlier in the conversation that the way you went about things and the way you saw some things suggested to me hopefulness. I don't know that you could impart that kind of worthiness to your children if you weren't hopeful.
Mhm.
How much
That's correct.
how much do you think, I'll put it this way, what role do you think patience plays in self-love?
Um, you have to have patience, uh, because you're gonna get frustrated. You're gonna get thoughts of, do I even want to do this? Do I put in the work? Am I worth this? Um, those are all the questions that I had for myself also. I had to realize that I am worth loving me. I am worth um being happy. I'm worth being a lot of things that I was told I was never going to be. You know, as at a young age, I was always told, you're never going to be anything. Nobody loves you, not even your mother. Like, I used to hear that all the time from the men that I was with. And I started to believe that. I think what saved me, and I will continue to say this, is becoming a mother, is having children. It's saying that I never wanted them to feel what I felt, you know, in certain areas of my life. And I have to say that my mom showed me certain things, but my grandmother showed me unconditional love, right? And that's where I get that from, where no matter what mistake I made in life, she never judged me. She'll be like, it's going to be okay. You got to move forward. And that's the woman that I think about when I am raising my children. And now I'm a grandmother. And I always say, I want to be just like her. I want to be just like my grandmother. I want them to grow up and say, I had the best grandma ever. You know, so that's where I think self-love is important, because if you don't love yourself, how are you supposed to pour that into a child or your grandkids? You can't. You cannot. And I did it while I was broken. So it's not that it's not in there. You just got to find it.
Well, yeah, and that makes me think that responsibility is also a part of it. If you didn't feel, wow, I can't even imagine what this must have felt like to you. But if you didn't feel responsible for the upbringing and the emotional well-being of your children, you certainly wouldn't have done it. I'm willing to say you couldn't have done it, but you just, I don't know, you had that wherewithal. One of the other things I want to suggest to you and everybody who's tuning in, I don't know if you're aware of this book, The Body Keeps the Score. And it's by a guy who actually is well, he's a psychiatrist. He's not a psychologist. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. But he started working with military and combat veterans, and then started to realize that there were other sources of trauma. And I found this book to be very helpful because it legitimized a lot of the things that I thought that I had experienced, and thought, well, you know, maybe you just made too much of that, or maybe you know, maybe you were just too sensitive. So it legitimized that. And it also helped me to understand, I know, you know, because we were at that book signing together. The reason, even if I didn't realize it at the time, the reason that I've written and published the books for children that I have so far is that I didn't want kids to feel like I felt when I was a kid. So I think, to your point, you alluded to this earlier. I think if we have some senses of ourselves, I think we can evolve to a point at which we get to be healthier and more constructive people.
Absolutely.
And on the subject of constructiveness, and I'm sorry, if you were going to say something, please go ahead.
Nope.
I think I've expressed this to you. I hope I have. You've actually helped me in promoting my most recent book. So thank you very much for that. But could you please tell us a little bit about the work you do now and the people you talk to and the people that you're able to help? Because your story is remarkable. And if nothing else, this program in particular, this episode with you, should impart hope to people.
I thank you very much. It's crazy because when I wrote the book, I thought it was just for me to maybe release and heal, but it was a lot bigger than that. It had a bigger purpose. It opened up a lot of doors. I met a lot of amazing people. I've been on 93.7. I've been to Niantic prison to speak to the women there. I've been to Eastern College, speak to the young women there. I went to Hartford Academy High School. I spoke to the young girls there. I've done chosen to speak at different areas. I was chosen to be Inspirational Woman of 2024, which I was very honored, and got to speak to a massive amount of people there. And I'm still working on trying to meet as many people as I can, to inspire as many people as I can. And I always say this, even if I save one person, I always say I've done my job. So if I can get more than that, then I'm blessed. I still look forward to hopefully being able to speak on many more platforms and express why I wrote the story. It was a roller coaster. So, you're crying, you're angry, but it's also healing because it let you take everything that you had inside and put it on paper. And I think that was really amazing for me. But to get the feedback from many, many people on what it did for them, it fills my whole entire heart. And I hope that I can continue to do that for many years to come.
You reminded me of something that I actually said on the program last week. There's a gentleman, his name was Jim Valvano. And he was the coach of the North Carolina University basketball team. Sadly, he died of cancer.
Oh.
But he spoke. He was sick and dying of cancer when he spoke at the very first ESPY Awards.
Wow.
And he said, people ask me, how do I get through the day? And he said, this is what I think you have to do. I'm paraphrasing every day. You have to think. You have to be compelled to think about something. You have to laugh.
Yes.
And he said, and you have to have your emotions moved to tears, whether it's sadness or joy or both. And he said, if you can do that, that's a heck of a day.
Sure is.
And I think, given what you just said, I think that's part of life. And I think some people work hard to escape sadness. And I'm not suggesting at all that people need to be masochistic or they should try to be sad all the time. But there's such learning from that. And
I wrote during my worst time in my life, my sadness, my crying. I was able to write my book. So I think that you're absolutely right. I think that it can actually push people to a limit where you don't think you can reach, and then you reach it. It's a weird and amazing feeling because it's just like, how do I get this done? I was homeless at the time. I was sleeping on a couch. And every day I got up and I was determined to finish and write my book every single day. And I didn't stop. No matter what was going on in my life, it was falling apart. But I didn't let that stop me because I felt like this is what I had to do. That was my purpose. I feel like when you get that urgency, no matter what sadness, no matter what anger you're going through, I promise you, you'll be able to get through it and get what you need to get done if that's what you're supposed to do. And that's what happened to me.
And I will share with you, and I think I've shared on this program before, but I'm happy to share with you, that 25, 26 some odd years ago, I suffered terribly from depression. But what I learned from that is that the only thing that can follow darkness is light.
Hello.
And it always does.
Mm-hmm.
So as we're wrapping up here, and I wish we weren't, I'm going to remind folks who can't see this broadcast again. The name of your book is I Did It For Her by Daisy Plaza. And please tell folks who may want to be in touch with you how they can find you.
I am on Instagram and Facebook. You can find me on I Did It For Her. And I also have a Facebook under Daisy Plaza. You can also find me on there. Follow me. Follow my journey. It's been fun. I've been doing a lot of things. So
And I would encourage everyone who has tuned in and will see or hear a recording of this to follow your journey too. And I want to end with this one thing: if rather than walking into Barnes and Noble that day, we had walked into like a police lineup somewhere, and somebody had said to me, "O'Brien, pick out the woman who's been a gang member and who's been in an abusive marriage for more than 20 years. I never would have picked you because your energy and your eyes and your smile are just way too bright for that. And God bless you for that.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here with me today and for sharing your story with us. And I know you and I will stay in touch. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mark.
Okay. And for everyone who joined us today, thank you. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you for tuning into The Anxious Voyage, the program dedicated to sharing stories, helping people, and celebrating life. You can see and listen to The Anxious Voyage on syndicated Dreamvisions 7 radio network every Monday at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, with live broadcast every first and third Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. If you have a story to tell, or if you know someone who does, please email the host, Mark O'Brien, at mark@o'briencg.com. In the meantime, please remember, the only bad stories are the ones we don't share.
This is Dreamvisions 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.